The Dauntless. The chaos is wrapping up, so he doesn't have much longer to take advantage of things. The last little bit of artistry will need a special touch. The Crescent Corner Girls are a very strong gang, a gang he has completely failed to get much in the way of information on and has repelled all sorts of probes. He needs to get a good hard look into the gang now. His careful, pointed steps take advantage of the natural split in his hooves to gently walk with as little noise as possible. True to form, the gang is repelling its opponents very firmly. Moriarty suspected, but had no proof, that it was in fact the Crescent Corner Girls that were helping keep the smaller gangs alive. Tonight, all that work goes up in flames. There is arguing, there is division and anger. These are good things. Moriarty teleports down to the level and then teleports away onto another building a short distance away. The front door of the well-defended main building is booted open, and no less than 5 women rush out with damn near their body weight in weapons strapped to them. Under his cloak, Moriarty smirks. After things calm down, he picks up a stone from the gravel of the roof he's on and starts pouring an axiom until he ties an axiom effect into it. He then throws the stone onto the roof of the Crescent Corner Girls, and the entire house freaks out before the stone teleports back into his hand. He charges it up a bit and watches in amusement as the formerly intractable gang is dancing to his tune. Some days, reality really just hands it to him. He then tosses the stone again, and the hive of paranoid gangsters dances further. "All right, troops, what did you do wrong?" the drill instructor asks, and no one answers. The man outright grins at the unspoken hostility in the room. "We assumed it was going to be fair." Squad Sergeant Davies grits out after a bit. Now that he's had some time to stew, he's only grown angry. "That's right. Your first mistake was thinking that your information hadn't rotted to complete uselessness the fucking second that your base self-destructed. You thought it was part of the sim, but it was the hint that shit had gone well the fuck beyond your power to solve." "There was no hint that we had any way to retreat," Davies protests. "Am I right? Did anyone see a way out that wasn't into fire, be it literal or laser?" "There were several opportunities for you boys to evacuate," the drill instructor says as the wall behind him reveals itself to be a screen, and it begins showing them their actions from a top-down perspective. Then it pauses. Right here, the nearest fights were small and could have been broken through. After that, it would have been easy enough to escape the area. Davies says nothing. How was he supposed to know about? How could you get out? The drill instructor seems to read his thoughts, and his eyebrows go up. "It's not about magically knowing things you had no way of knowing. To be honest, this was what's called a Kobayashi Maru, a reference to an unwinnable test in a sci-fi setting called Star Trek. The test is broken, so you have to break the test. This is what you have to learn to do. You have to make a winning scenario when you don't see one. Hunkering down and splitting your forces like that was a smart move, but you need more training or more men if you want something like that to work. Between tending to the wounded, fighting fires, and defending the safe point you set up there were not enough men left behind. Furthermore, the roving group was too easily tied down transporting the civilians you found. You needed twice the number in both groups. The defending group needed more manpower everywhere, and the roving group needed more guards to effectively prevent enemy ambushes." The room is quiet as the drill instructor lets the test play out. "All right, you Boyle and Ghouls stuck to the mission, which was laudable. You all got loyalty, ground combat, and organization down well. Your first aid skills are also damn good kiddies." "No question as to why we didn't call for reinforcements?" Squad Sergeant Davies asks somewhat tartly. "You didn't have the gear for it. You were alone, which is another reason as to why you should have run," the drill instructor says. "When the going gets tough, your options are few, especially at this level of your training. After a while, you'll reach the level where this kind of situation is something you can deal with ease. But until that point, When you get into a situation as completely fucked up as this, you retreat. You retreat tactically, intelligently, and carry out as many civilians out of the line of fire as you can safely defend. Our orders were never to fight the enemy. It was to evacuate the civilians, Squad Sergeant Davies realizes. Exactly. Your orders were deliberately worded to give you the wrong impression, as was the information presented to you. But your mission, your actual mission, was civilian evacuation. For that, you needed to establish an avenue of escape. This is a common occurrence in military situations. While we do all we can to get around it, miscommunication can and will strike. You need to know how to properly interpret your orders to reach the actual information. Still, you pukes looked like you were right out of an action movie, slamming open doors and taking down the criminal scum inside, racing right into a blazing inferno to carry out the innocent and injured. The drill instructor calls out and pauses the video at the relevant times. Hell, I'd watch that movie. The final image is when Davies tries to throw back the bomb. But sometimes life just takes you back around the shed with a shotgun. He continues and shows the bomb blowing up and taking him out of the sim. The weapon staggers most of the party and takes out 3 civilians. The area is drenched in laser fire and more soldiers are taken down, and the screen splits to show that the fires grew much stronger at the safe house until the building started to collapse. It was the collapsing building that pushed them over the limit for acceptable casualties and ended the simulation. That doesn't make Davies feel any better. He should have chosen a better strong point for the squad. Something smacks into the top of his head and he looks up from his self-hatred even as the pen falls to the floor. What the hell? Get out of that cycle. This was a rigged test. You weren't winning, especially not the first time, but you came damn close. 10 civilians were what you needed to save. You had almost all of them and were bringing the rest home when you got jumped. You weren't supposed to win, but you nearly did. They've finally stopped responding to his mass of false alarms, so he teleports across and no one rushes up to greet him. Perfect. And as they've been rushing in and out and around until they've gotten tired and annoyed, they've stopped locking the doors right away. So he simply enters the building and casually walks down the stairwell into the top level. It almost looks homey and comfortable. A nice carpet cushions his hooves and silences his steps as he pokes around. First room he finds is someone's bedroom, and apparently they're rather frustrated on the sexual side of things from the smell in the air. He only gives the room a quick search rather than a thorough one. He just doesn't have the time to completely toss the place, and there's no way he can do it and be unnoticed while the building is occupied. Still, he does have time to poke around and grins as he finds a small weapon stash and janitor's closet. A quick scan finds several axiom tags on it to let the weapon be tracked. Tags that are fairly subtle and very well integrated into the standard siphon and hardening array to allow the weapons to work. Unfortunately, he knows exactly how to take them apart and reduces most of the tracking arrays on one and then quickly stashes it back into the room he had just searched. That ought to bring about some entertainment sooner or later. Next chamber is a lovely bedroom, well kept, meticulously kept in fact, militarily kept to be more accurate. He barely resists muttering that he knew it. One of the major movers and shakers of the Crescent Corner girls was ex-military. It explains just about everything from the sheer operational security to the systematic organization of their defensive actions and well-maintained gear. Then he feels cold metal pressed into his back. Gotcha. He doesn't turn. He doesn't move, but he does plot and slowly, carefully, unobtrusively begins gathering axiom. You're the one who's been fucking with our defensive wards. You're responsible for this entire night's madness, aren't you? He drops his voice a few octaves and chuckles. Deeply, lowly, he finishes the laugh. Hundreds of women fighting and dying for nothing. Beautiful, isn't it? He asks in the most sinister tone he can manage. The axiom effect is ready. He's ready. Why? Why not? he asks in return. So, you're just a sadist? Some kind of psychopath adept? She demands, and he slowly turns. As he does, the gun is shoved into his chest and he faces the hard-bitten snikt. Her arm blades are twitching with a desire to use them. She can clearly see him. Hopefully, not clearly, or he's in real trouble. Maybe it's something to do with her eyes? He's never used a cloak like this around one of her kind before. Something like that. Or perhaps I'm something else entirely, he asks, and she sneers. Oh? Like what? What could possibly justify all of this? She demands. How long have you been here? He asks. I caught you sneaking into my room. She hisses and he nearly smiles. Good. So his little bit of troublemaking might have gone unnoticed. Not here as in right now, here as in on this level. Have you even seen the upper levels? Level 11 of Ven's Spire is paradise compared to here. It's a 10-minute trip to get there. What's wrong with this place? He asks. It is, after all, more or less why he's actually here. What better lie than the truth after all? It's just the way it is. Closer to the ground you get, the poorer and more desperate it is, she replies. Have you been to a frontier world? Why is it that a place right on the ground, with a fraction of the budget this place has, can do so much better? Fuck you and fuck these questions. You're playing mind games with me? Do you think I'm stupid? Do you think you're getting out of this in one piece? Right now, the only choices you have are cooperate, and I take only a finger for trespassing. Or you can be an idiot and I take your life instead. Sound good? She demands. Counterpoint, he says, and is gone in a teleport. Back at his personal safe house, he screams in pain and quickly rips off his burnt shirt and pulls off the low-profile armor he had been given. At point-blank range, it still heated up the plate enough that it went red-hot right next to his skin. Holy God, sweet songs of discord, he exclaims as he clutches at his burnt but not blasted through chest. He can feel his heart hammering against the painfully reddened skin and melted fur. Note to self, never complain or go without low-profile armor again. Davy slumps down in place with his meal. It's the biggest he's ever had in one sitting, but he needs it. It and more. He'd spoken to the other squads, to the instructors, and he was starting to let go of the feeling of failure. Second best squad and the best one simply cut and run when everything had gone to absolute shit. They had picked up a couple civvies by accident, but still got at least 3 out alive. Better than his squad, but for the wrong reasons. Reasons that needed to be corrected. The new necklace he has on makes his everything itch a little, and makes his expanding and increasingly ravenous stomach growl. In goes the eggs, the bacon, and more. He's volunteered for another level of training, or rather, biomodding, null resistance training. He was growing new organs already, and they needed protein and about 1,000 other things to grow properly. Axiom could help, but in truth he needed above all else lots and lots of food. Perhaps reckless, but it did make him feel like he was accomplishing something more than failing at an impossible test.